Hello and welcome to MSP Tech Day. It's Jeff Farris, President and CEO of CloudRadial, and Ricky Cecchini, our Director of Development. And we're here today to do some deep dives on various CloudRadial features. The agenda today is pretty ambitious, but basically we've got 30-minute sessions back to back for the next 4 hours. So if you want to hear Ricky and I drone on for 4 hours, you're in the perfect place. Yeah. So we want to go through, we've got a lot to cover. It's broken up in again, these 30-minute sessions. So if you want to come and go or, come back later, we are going to put all of these back up on YouTube. So if you want to catch this later or catch pieces of this later, then this content will be available on YouTube probably this weekend. Or before this weekend. So here's the schedule. I'll give you just a couple of seconds to figure out if and when you want to attend. But basically, we're going to go through a lot of different features of CloudRadial to talk about things and do a little bit of a deep dive. So this is going to be a little bit of talk and a lot of demo. So hopefully you're in the right place. So to get started, just kind of set the framework for everything we're going to be talking about. CloudRadial is that single pane of glass, that integrated solution that's going to bring together account management, service, and clients together to try to get everybody on the same page. And the best way so far we've been able to kind of show this is by putting this together in these overlapping areas. CloudRadial has features for each of these groups individually, but it also helps service and clients work together. It works clients and account managers work together. It works account managers and service work better together. And it brings together these common interfaces that work across all of these different need groups. So this is the key part. What we're going to do today is focus on various pieces of this to go into this in a lot more detail. We're going to start with a deep dive on assessments. This is a brand new feature that we rolled out a couple of weeks ago. It's been certainly one of the most requested and certainly one of the most positive things that we've done in the product. And so we're real excited about that. We've done things a little different. Again, CloudRadial has a different spin on everything that we do. So in the assessments piece, we're going to spend a little bit of time really thinking this through from the client perspective. So again, typically the assessments have been inward-facing solutions. They've been designed for service staff to conduct and then to print a report and take to the client. Our assessments module is quite different. Again, it's going to be part of this single pane of glass. Assessments sit right in the middle of everything because, again, they have a service component, an account manager component, and a client component. And so the assessments, the way we do them, are client-facing and potentially service or account management filled. And again, with the CloudRadial focus on the internet and collaboration, you can even assign tasks of that assessment off to the clients to do themselves. So assessments are very powerful because they're going to let you prepare for all the things that are going to come up with the client. Again, it's being a managed service provider today is a lot more than repairing a computer. So much of that stuff, the critical stuff that managed service providers do is outside of the office, outside of the PC setup, and surrounds the preparation, the training, all the setup that's required for all the different cloud services and the interaction of those cloud services to make things ready. There's a lot of details in that, and assessments are one way to prepare for those issues and prevent problems before they happen. Assessments are much more than checklist because they also give you the ability to rate risk according to severity. And one of the things that we've designed into the assessments module is the ability to rate different answers appropriately. So again, if there's 50 things that are wrong, not all of those 50 things that need remediation have the same weight. And so we've given you ways in the assessments to rank and rate those. Our key points, can return over to Ricky, but the key points are we're going to make it easy to get in and out of Excel. So again, you can accommodate the existing list of best practices. We're going to basically allow you to compare runs and assessments over time. You're going to be able to task questions and responsibilities out to different people in your organization or in your client's organization. Again, we're going to bring the risk remediation information together in one spot, again, so we can do the detailed analysis as to what's required. The collaboration's big. And bottom line is it's all going to feed back to your planner, and it's all going to be client facing. So again, as you work through the assessment, you're going to see that our solution is quite different than things that you've seen in the past. And now with that, I'll turn it over to Ricky so he can do a deep dive on assessments. Ricky.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so for a lot of the guys that are going to be watching this, again, I'm kind of like the coach here at CloudRadial, so it is kind of my bag to do this kind of display of all these features we're going to do today. So hopefully, as I get settled here, we're going to give you some nice live examples. I always hate whenever we talk about features and we don't know what specific things we're talking about. So let's just make sure. Jeff, are you seeing my main screen or are you seeing the wrong one?
Your flame screen.
Which is a cool one, but that is the wrong one. Let's swap that over real quick. Okay, let me know if you can see the correct one, which should be my tenant.
Not as cool, but I see something that's more appropriate for the telecast.
All right, cool. So yeah, so assessments, as it turns out, and I think I speak for me and Jeff when I say initially when you look into it, it's something that seems like it might be simple, but it turns out to be a very complex endeavor for various reasons because there's so many moving parts to it. It can be big, it can be small. There's a lot of moving parts that you have to think about, even over a series of runs or times, as we'll see. So I guess the easiest way is probably to jump into the core concept, right? Our assessment module is kind of further down within our feature set in CloudRadial under our compliance section. It does serve as a bigger part of reporting inside of everything else that CloudRadial does as a whole, but it's nestled in here. And in this tenant that we're looking at right now, this is one of my personal test tenants, hence my Ricky's MSP. And you can see that I've already got some stuff, but the premise isn't all that difficult in that an assessment is always a series of questions, right? Whatever you want to ask to assess risk, it's kind of there. So initially, we're just asking to kind of lay that out. So one of the things that you can do in CloudRadial is, of course, build your assessment frame to house your questions. And that's what we're looking at here. Here's a series of ones that I've already got up and running. Now, the process to do this, even in applications, is very easy, right? We're just going to go hit add. I'm going to be able to name my assessment whatever I want, give it a description. So just for the sake of this, we'll go example, right? And then we're going to be able to do stuff like making it partner only, or maybe we want our clients to be able to see it. And that's pretty cool too, because that means that it's not just instantly making it visible to the client. There are some things that you may want to assess internally for that client and keep it nice and clean within their organization in CloudRadial, which again, account managers appreciate, especially as they rely on CloudRadial to help their day-to-day. But obviously, yes, switching over to client visible too helps you assign tasks maybe to the clients themselves. So there's that flexibility just on the initial creation of the assessment, as well as the status, right? In progress, a review, marking this one as fully complete. In this case, we'll say it's in progress, and even a recommendation of the interval to run it. Some things are certainly one and done. It's a lot of like the pre-sales things, right? CloudRadial, again, really focused to be a account management platform and a client portal, but some of our partners also use it as a pre-sales tool because you can functionally get all the stuff done in here, present it to the would-be client, and then they have all their information in the portal before they even get there, which is really neat. So up to you on how you want to play all that. Sometimes it's just once, other times further along the cycle, you may want to do it monthly, quarterly, whatever. So we'll just do one for kicks, every example every month. And now that we've created it, you can see that it's going to live alongside, back button, live alongside all of my other assessments. It's the one right here, right? So this really hasn't done anything just yet. We've just created the frame to house the questions. And there's a couple of different ways we can go about this. And this is where I think CloudRadial can be extremely powerful, because we don't want to limit you to just one way. We want to make sure that you can use your own proprietary methods and whatever you've already got existing to facilitate making your assessments client facing. So whether that's building it directly in here, as I'll show you, or uploading it via Excel, up to you. For the sake of this example, we'll just go ahead and build one in here. So I'm going to take my frame. I'm going to use my 3 blue dot menu, which is how we do a lot of management in CloudRadial for some things. Click that, and we're going to go ahead and straight and edit this assessment. And by editing it, it's going to take me to the same screen I just did, where we can rename it if we want. But really, we're looking for questions. And this is where we can build those out basically to any degree we want. So we can come in here and we start adding questions directly within CloudRadial for this assessment. So add. And as I go through, a lot of these are, this is very common in CloudRadial. It's something that you don't need to fill out every single field. It's up to your discretion on how detailed you want to get it. But you can see that there is, generally speaking, a spot to house all the things that you'd want to run in something like an assessment. So for example, the notes and the partner specific notes, you may already come thinking about something in mind for the specific question. You might not have everything, and that's okay. We can always edit these later. Same thing for flagging the item for attention or marking a task owner. We can do this now just for the sake of example to make it a little bit easier. I won't be doing this. I'll just skip right over to format, which is most likely what people are thinking of. This is where you would be able to set a category to kind of group some questions together, right? So we could say like, category 1. And the question itself would be where we write what we want to check, right? So if we want to check for, do the users have 2 monitors, right? All of a sudden we started to build that out. Same thing with the question types. The question types, what is the potential responses to this? Is it a yes, no question? Do you need something more intricate like this has been implemented, not implemented, or somewhere in between? Do you want to do it freehand text? That's also an option too. Or later on, as I'll be showing you, you can even go create your own custom options. So this is kind of like a global template of questions that are available. They can always be customized to what you want. But for right now, we'll just make it a super yes, no question. After that, right, we kind of work our way down the question, setting it up as much as we need. So the format's obviously very important. These two are required to make the question work, as you can see by the little star. Everything after that, again, is cherry on top stuff. Very helpful, but won't ruin it if you don't have it right now. So things like the explanation and evaluation criteria, for example, are to help the client understand not just that you're asking, in my case, the 2 monitor question, but you're explaining why that would be something that you check for in the first place to help that client-facing side make a lot more sense. The evaluation criteria as well. This is going to help them understand specifically what you're checking for. Now, in this case, my example is very simplistic, right? A 2 monitor setup, you go, you look, and you go, you don't have it. Okay, that would help you with productivity, but sometimes it's more dynamic than that. There's some things we want to check, and this helps to turn your assessments from something that is subjective, right? Which, every single technician could see that and go, yeah, well, kind of technically, yeah, no, right? There's complexity there. So the more information you fill in the explanation and the evaluation, and even in the remediation, as we'll see, the more you can ensure that you are aligned across every facet of your assessment to make sure that no matter who's at the helm of running it or answering it, they're looking for the same things consistently. So it's about taking something and making it very objective, very quantitative, basically, not just qualitative based off of the assessor. The control types, the likelihood, the risk cost, all of these are really interesting as well. There is a bit, as we'll see here in the reporting, that we're able to take all of this stuff and turn it into a matrix of likelihood, which is very helpful for the client side of things to understand what they should tackle first. Because obviously, if you have many, many questions in an assessment and everything's a problem, you want some way to prioritize, and this can really help. So filling these out and going, oh, this is a preventative issue, right? This is really likely to appear, right? This is a very, very serious risk, so it's a severe risk. And maybe the cost to fix is really negligible. I mean, why wouldn't we be doing this? This will all come into play in a moment as I show you how that all adds up. So there's a lot of stuff in here to kind of think about the ultimate report that we're going to pull from this, and we just kind of work our way down, right? The remediation, similar idea. The remediation is not just telling them what we're looking for and why, but actually how we fix it, right? So whenever they go into it, whether it's by themselves or with an account manager or assessor, they're able to run through and go, okay, here are the steps to take to fix it, right? A brief summary to give them the short and sweet. The remediation plan can also break down specific steps, because again, it might not be as easy as buy another monitor. In my example, it might be something that's intricate, saying we have to do this check and then get this and then that and then double run another assessment. There's a lot of stuff in there that needs to be done. So as we go down, the other thing that we can do as well is assign costs to this, right? Sometimes you're going to need recurring costs to fix this issue. Sometimes it's project costs. And this can also be displayed to the client for remediation efforts, as we'll see. Again, nothing too crazy. You can see that there's a lot of stuff that is necessary, but for the most part, it's basically filling it out to any degree that you want that makes sense for you, right? Maybe it doesn't incur any costs, maybe it does, and you want to be able to track that. The other tabs that we have up here are routing, checklist, and script. As Jeff mentioned, it's a fairly new addition to CloudRadial. This is a pretty big cornerstone in the direction we're taking our product in general. What this is ultimately going to be really useful for is, and I believe we're talking about ticketing later on, routing the question itself within an assessment, not just to be something to be talked about, but also maybe even generating a ticket off that is going to be really critical. And having that available with a click of a button whenever they feel like, whether it's the assessor or the person who's running through it, the client side, to be able to open that up is really critical. And this is where you're going to be able to set all these things. So while this isn't something that's functional right now, because we don't have the ticket opening capability just yet. It's already built into it. So preparing, what boards it goes to with PSAs or even email addresses is going to be really nice and handy, because that's going to take care of a lot of that ahead of time. So let me close out my emails before I start getting a bunch of alerts. That's the gist of the questions. And you really don't want to see me build a full one, because again, it can be very, very complex with how many questions you can put into this thing. So really, as we run through the details, we add questions. Another aspect of it as well is, again, we just released this. We're going to be allowing you a lot of flexibility in how you present this in an executive report. So if you want a nice summary to it all, there's going to be more on this in a little bit. Right now, we don't have this available yet, though. Just like the tickets, we've kind of pre-built some of this stuff. So really, when we talk about our assessments today, if you were to get into the product today, what you're really focusing on is building your frame and building your questions the way you like, to as high of a degree as you like. So because no one wants to watch me talk for 40 minutes, you want to watch me talk for 10 tops. You want to see me, probably run an assessment that I've already gotten. So under my demo assessment, I've already taken the time to do kind of the grunt work of this, right? I already filled some stuff out. I already added more reasonable questions. These all have some of the risks and remediation efforts. And once I have the questions built to any degree I like, I'm going to go ahead and have them in my assessment. I'm going to run that assessment. So I'm going to use the same 3 blue dot menu to click on run. That is going to generate basically an attempt of that assessment, which is really important, because we're not necessarily doing this as a one and done. This has now become kind of a template to run it. So in the demo assessment, I've done that with a couple of different runs. You can see that what happens is, as I run it, I guess I should show you that should be important, is it'll give me the name of the assessment and then a dash with the date I tried to run it. And what I just did was I clicked right into my assessment. You can see the previous runs that I've done. Now ignore this column because I did them all on the same day, but it would look something more like this, right? We're able to see when I ran the assessments and how we were doing. And then we're also seeing the score and the max potential score. So I believe this is the first one I ran just as a test. And you can see that now that I've got the run of the assessment, the attempt, as the assessor, this is what I actually go in and analyze. So in this one, I went in, you can see that I've got a lot of red charts, right? What we're doing is we're taking the categories, we're visualizing them, we're making it a nice experience for the client to see, able to see all these things at a quick glance. Details, right? We're going to use a lot of the tab system at the top to navigate through the assessment. The details tab is kind of more what people usually think when they think of assessments, in that they're going to see the categories broken down, kind of like we had them built. They're going to be able to see the status of these, right? Compliant, non-compliant, maybe it's not available. If a certain one is flagged, that's what F is, right? If there's attachments to this, if there are notes appended to these. And as an assessor, I can go through, again, with the client or beforehand, I can click on the individual questions and I can get a feel for all of it. So all the fields I talked about a moment ago in the questions will show up here, right? These are the client-facing ones. These ones in orange with partner are ones that are not going to show up for the client. These are visible just to the assessor or the MSP, right? So if I want to go into detail and I have a lot of very complex questions, I may not be able to just tick stuff off, right? There may be caveats, there may be follow-up steps. So as I click on any individual question, I might need to take my time and edit them. And that screen I showed you at the very beginning where I said, oh, there's notes and you may not want to do this, that's where that might come in. You might want to add more in here. You might want to add attachments. You might want to flag it. You might want to assign it, right? So in this case, I'm going to say, Ricky C, that's me, needs to do this task. So as I do these things, I'm going to start to be able to sort by these flags, these non-compliances, these assigned tasks, to give me a quick way to visualize how we kind of tackle this assessment. And you can see that aside from being able to kind of minimize categories and work my way through it, it's going to be really kind of potentially lengthy. So if you've got really in-depth ones, you can. If you want to go a lot faster, you can as well. You can quickly hit edit responses and go through and say compliant, non-compliant, and change them to be kind of whatever you want to on the fly. Now, sorting by these is another thing, right? Again, this menu can be really helpful. It's not particularly taxing when it's only 6 questions, but being able to fly through what's compliant, what's not compliant, which ones have been flagged can be really useful. And really, this comes more into play not when we're looking at the general summary, which is what we just did, right? We looked at the details of it between these two, but more so the recommendations, which is the third tab over. So we can actually see the recommendations of how to remediate against these, right? So it's not just saying, do users have multiple screens and going, yes, no, no, okay, too bad. It's about saying, okay, then we're going to need 5 screens at $200 each. That's going to be $1,000, and we have that located in here. Same thing for this one. Or do the users have passwords on their phones? 15 of those at 50 cents each for a license, another additional $7.50 monthly. So showing them this, we can take these things, and we'll talk about this a little bit later as well, but we can add this to our planner, which is going to be really critical. And using this account planner helps us to not just give these big charts, but actually put this into a context that we can later run through as an account manager and make sure we talk about. So we have a good remediation with solid talking points, not just throwing numbers on the screen. All those other things I mentioned as far as like the preventative risk and the kind of like the risk matrix comes into play with the charting capabilities. So as you saw, I was going through my example one earlier and I said like likely, not likely, severe risk and all that kind of stuff. Having the analysis with, let's see, this project one's more interesting, to show up like this, right? So what is the risk impact? What is the cost to doing it? As you can see, this impact is huge. The cost is nearly negligible. Let's purchase a lock and apply to the server room. That seems very cheap for the amount of risk that it reduces, right? Versus this one, which is like, well, it's very costly. Purchase secondary screens, maybe, right? We might want to prioritize off that. So having something that the client can visualize is very, very helpful from the account management experience. So please forgive me. I know we're doing these 30-minute slots, and some of these features are very in-depth. So I'm going, I know, very quickly through it, but that is the core gist of an assessment, right? An assessment is a frame of questions. You ask them however you like. You generate attempts for those. Now, there are scalability issues with doing it like that, right? And we've tried to consider that as much as possible because CloudRadial is intended to be something that you can use at scale for one client or 1,000. It should work the same way for every single one. And building an assessment like I just did, or in my example, question by question, obviously not feasible for larger engagements or even small engagements. So what we recommend instead is not building them just like this, but actually building them from a system of templates. And the templates option is right next to assessments. And really, these are assessments just as the other one I just did. They work pretty much the same. I would go add my assessment template, which looks eerily similar to an assessment. I got my title, my description, the visibility. And you can see that I've done that, right? So I've built assessment templates. I can click on the blue dots and I can edit them. And again, functionally speaking, they're going to be exactly the same. They've got the details and they've got the questions. Now, why is this important at all? Because what is more scalable, instead of building assessments by hand one by one, what is a lot more modular and scalable is the ability to kind of take your assessment process and use a building block approach. So instead of, again, asking all the questions, I've broken up my endpoint questions from my server questions from my user questions. And then when I build my assessments, just like I did my demo one or the example one or any one of those, instead of having to build the assessments in here, I can actually choose to build this assessment questions based off of templates I've built. So that way I'm saying, hey, I want to import the endpoint questions for this template and assemble it that way. I want to import the server one or maybe a NIST one. This one we have a ton of questions for. And not just doing it one time, but being dynamic about it, right? Something like the user template where I'm doing something like a user setup checklist assessment for this company. I don't want to have to click that and go, well, they have 30 users and let's click it once every time. CloudRadial, based off of synced users, can actually multiply that automatically to apply that template per the number of users. So I believe that's actually what I'm doing in this one right here. My template edition one is I went ahead and I added a template for my users for every user, and then within CloudRadial I generated a run. And again, without having to build it one by one within the system, I built it once in the assessment, and now I have the ability to run all of those with a click of a couple buttons. And again, a little bit advanced for this webinar, but CloudRadial's entire system of content distribution is really powerful there in that we push stuff out from kind of like a master folder. So it doesn't matter if it's for one client or for 1,000 clients, you can build your assessment templates from one area. In this case, I've got one NIST one in this area. And you can push these out in mass, which means you can push the building blocks to all of your clients. And then at the point in time where you need to assemble an assessment for a given client, you have all your building blocks. So your job is literally just going click, 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 and generate assessment. That keeps it very modular, very Lego building block approach to it, if you want. You can also build one giant chunk and then run that too. But well,
so we're getting down to the end here. A couple of things that just want to accentuate with Ricky. This is client facing. So a lot of times what you're going to be seeing when you click on assessments, the way it's organized, it's designed for a client to be able to see it first, right? So if you click on assessments, you go to the runs. If you click on runs, you go to the graph view. Because at that point in time, again, we're thinking about the client reporting aspects of it. And then from there, you can drill down into the details and the recommendations. So the same way that a client might approach this in their understanding of assessments should be the way that you should think of it as being organized in the way that you work with it. So from a purely efficiency standpoint, as far as answering questions, sometimes a couple of things are buried down one more click. But again, this is for the client-facing purpose.